Thank you, Christian. That whole thing was not my idea, just so you know. Thank you so much for coming out on a rainy night and for braving the new exit at exit 28. It probably took me about 10 minutes to get across here. Tell you about what we're going to do here tonight. I'm going to talk for about a half an hour. I have some slides here we'll go through. I'd ask that you hold your questions to the end. We'll have a Q&A period following that, and then we'll talk about some things that you can get involved with. Remember, the topic of this evening's meeting is what do we do now, and so we hope you came prepared to look at opportunities to get involved. So, we had a little bit of a technical issue here, so I'm going to have to be like a two-fisted presenter, I guess. And if I'm standing in front of you, I apologize. But at the risk of stating the obvious, we need to first define the problem. And the problem is, as you know, a congested stretch interstate basically from around mile marker 21 on up to Mooresville. That's a two-lane stretch of road. It was put in 40 years ago. Has not been widened since it was put in. Now, one solution, there was a study that was done a couple of years ago that if you added general purpose lanes in a single general purpose lane in both directions, where you have the congestion, that would cost around $80 to $130 million. So we're saying about $100 million, and please hold that number in mind because I'm going to come back to it here in a minute. The solution that is being proposed are privately operated toll lanes. 27.5 miles, $655 million contract, and under a 50-year contract, an exclusive contract with a private company to design, build, and operate toll lanes, basically going from Mooresville down to uptown Charlotte. So what's the difference? And I know you can't read this, but the visual impact is there, and I'll kind of read it for you. If you look at what's involved with the plan, you have you're going to construct a couple of hot lane flyover bridges in Charlotte. You're going to replace Hamilton Street Bridge in Charlotte, the Stiles Street Bridge in Charlotte, Oak Lawn Street Bridge in Charlotte, remove a pedestrian bridge in Charlotte, construct 2 new hot lane bridges over I-77 in Charlotte, replace I-75 I-85 bridge in Charlotte, and then we're going to replace Hambright and Westmoreland bridges there. So what you see is a lot of construction, basically a lot of infrastructure that is in service to the hot lanes that doesn't move traffic where it's needed. And if you look, you know, we don't, I'm used to my clicker, we don't need a lot of this infrastructure. What we do need is some of this to be widened through here, and then we don't need the Westmoreland and Hambright bridges replaced, and we're not sure whether or not we need to replace the Griffith Street Bridge. And so what you find is the majority of travel time savings are up here through Lake Norman. The majority of cost is in Charlotte. Now, us here up in Lake Norman, we're not so naive to know kind of the attitude for people in Charlotte. And I don't know if I don't see any familiar faces from Charlotte, but if you came up from Charlotte today, God bless you. Thank you for braving the traffic. I want to talk to you for just a minute about what the project means to you. Now, when we talk to people in Charlotte, they basically say, you know, look, you people in Lake Norman, you moved here. You're the ones commuting to Uptown. So you're the ones who are creating this problem in the first place. You're the ones who should pay for it. Now they say that a little bit more politely than what I just did, but that's kind of what you hear them say. I want to talk about that a little bit. All of this infrastructure, and in fact they may be in favor of saying, you know, we're getting all this infrastructure built and we're getting the Lake Norman commuter to pay for it. What a great idea that is for us. Well, all of this infrastructure is in service to the private toll lane company. So unless you're going to use the toll lane, if you're in Charlotte, you're not going to benefit from this. If you're coming in on I-85, you don't have access to these toll lanes. If you're coming in from Independence, you don't have access to these toll lanes. If you're coming up from South Charlotte, you don't have access to the toll lanes. And so basically what you have is all of this infrastructure is being used in service to the private company. And why are all these bridges being torn down? Because they need to widen the underpass so they can fit 4 toll lanes underneath them. So like I said, you know, if you think that the infrastructure is going to be public infrastructure, it's not. Second point on this is that this is the first toll lane that's planned. All right, and so, yes, we're first, but you also are going to have widening I-77 south in Charlotte with toll lanes. Independence Boulevard planned to be widened with toll lanes. I-45 around Monroe and Valentine, that just got widened with a couple of general purpose lanes. Congratulations, we're jealous. But in the future, that's going to be widened with toll lanes as well. So we're the first of a plan. The third point is that this infrastructure, all this construction uses all of the remaining right-of-way for the toll lanes, all right? So once this gets put in, that's it. So all that construction on 277, all that construction on 77 that's down here, all of that is going to use up whatever right-of-way is remaining. And so what that means is, right here in the center of Charlotte, you're going to be in a 50-year toll lane straitjacket, just like us folks are up in Lake Norman. The other thing is, if we have any elected officials from Charlotte, this serves, and the toll lane plan serves a lot of low-income communities. And what we're creating here is basically a caste system for infrastructure. Those that can afford access to good infrastructure do. Now we've heard, and there are some studies out there that say that there are people from a variety of incomes and backgrounds that use toll lanes. That's true. However, if you look at these studies, it's really the high-income people and middle-class people who use toll lanes the most, and lower-income people do not. So, you know, if you're representing those communities, we ask that you would reconsider your support for the toll lanes. And if you're from Charlotte, and I don't know how many people are, but I know we have the media here, we're inviting our neighbors in Charlotte to join us in this and see if we can find a better solution than what we're talking about here. All right, so I talked about the infrastructure. How does that actually all sort out as far as monetarily? As far as, this is very directional, isn't it? I have to wow, really close, don't I? Okay. This little green wedge here, that's what actually moves the traffic through Lake Norman. So 15% of the total project cost is putting asphalt where it's needed. If you look at this red part of this, at 53%, that's toll-related construction. Remember all the bridges that I was talking about that just got torn down? Replaced? That's what this is. And by the way, I don't know if you saw the Observer article yesterday, but they talked about, you know, some horrific percentage of our bridges are structurally deficient. None of the bridges scheduled to be replaced are structurally deficient. So what you find is you're going to replace a structurally sound two-lane bridge with a structurally sound two-lane bridge. And then there's this toll-specific cost, which is about a quarter of the project. What is that? Well, that's $50 million for tolling equipment. That's like $55 million for what's called advice and overhead, $20 million for bid preparation. All of this stuff here, which totals about $175 million, does not pay one single inch of asphalt. Now, if you remember back earlier, we said our solution, our bare bones solution would be $100 million. So we're going to spend $170 million on the tolling project that doesn't actually pave anything. And I know you can't read this, but I'll go through this. So we've been asking to see how this project would rank in a general purpose lane. And this is brand new. I was on the phone literally with the NCDOT at about 4:30 this afternoon, and they emailed this information. So I'll tell you, I haven't had a chance to digest it, but in the interest of full disclosure, I want to talk for a minute about it, recognizing that we still have homework to do. What this is a list, these things in blue here are potential, what they did was a hypothetical ranking of I-77 projects through Lake Norman. And the thing that we want to look at is this mobility score. And I know this is tough to read, and I apologize, but basically these numbers here are in the 50s, okay? So that's what you got to take away with this. All right, and then the highest one that ranks is this stretch of 3-lane road, which ranks at 68 points. And so if you look at this, we have an 8-mile project that costs $90 million, and it gets 54 points. And we have a 3-mile project that costs $162 million, and it gets 68 points. Obviously, the devil is in the details, And we need to look at that a bit more closely. I do know that there are some things that tend to skew the priority towards toll lanes. One is, there's this column here called the cost to NCDOT. Not the cost of the project, but the cost to the NCDOT. So even though this may cost twice as much because a private company would put that equity in and you end up paying for it, it ranks higher because it's a toll lane. Like I said, we have a little bit to digest on that, but I wanted to put that out there. All right, so we talked about the $175 million for tolling specific equipment. We talked about the fact that a solution would cost $100 million, roughly. We say that there's not any money to do that, yet the taxpayer contribution for the toll lanes is $88 million. So you, the taxpayer, are contributing $88 million that goes toward the construction of these toll lanes. There's also a taxpayer subsidy of $75 million. What does that mean? That means that if the revenues fall short, toll revenues fall short of projections for any given year, you, the taxpayer, will reimburse the private company up to $12 million a year and a total of $75 million in aggregate. So if you look at this and you say, well, if I add that up, it's 160 something. Right there's taxpayer money. Granted, those are different buckets to widen this as opposed to benefit the private company. And then finally, a lot of the bonds that are being issued to this are taxpayer-backed bonds. And so, in fact, about 200 million of that. So what you have, even though this is a public-private partnership, you have the substantial taxpayer involvement. Basically, what you've done is you've privatized a lot of the profit potential, and the public is bearing a bit of the risk for that. Quite a bit of the risk. All right, and I know you can't read this either, but I'll hit the highlight. So I talked a little bit, this is a philosophical argument that I've given you so far. It said, tolls are expensive, and there's a lot of money that's being wasted here, but you say, you know what, well, how does that affect me, right? So the next couple of slides talk about how it affects you. This study, we got this from a Freedom of Information Act request. It's been widely reported in the press. It has been somewhat controversial since it was published. I will talk about that in a minute. The takeaway that you need is, if you go the length, where'd my diagram? If we go the length of the toll lanes in the morning or in the afternoon, this study came out with basically you pay $9 here in the morning and you pay $11 during peak hours for your evening commute. So when the toll lanes opened, what it projected was a $20 round trip. And then in 20 years from now, what it projected was a $40 round trip. So we put that out, and this, as I said, got quite a bit of notice. The other thing that was in this is, if you look at the effect that it has on the general purpose lane congestion. And one thing that you need to take away from this, that you need to remember, is the only time you're going to pay to use a toll lane is when the general purpose lanes are congested, right? You are going to pay to avoid traffic. And so here you see this divergence between what's in the public interest and what the private company wants. The private company wants congestion and high tolls, and of course the public sector just wants to go ahead and get to where they need to go. If you look at the difference, right now it's from Mooresville to Charlotte, it's about an 80-minute commute. In 20 years, that's expected to increase by an hour a day. So if you're on that, going to work with that, that's, what is that, 300 hours a year or 12 and a half days you can plan on sitting in traffic as a result of the increased congestion. So a little bit about that study now, because like I said, I think this has been reported. This is probably, you've heard this, and some of the reason why a lot of you are here. The first thing that we heard when we published this is the study is outdated. It's about an 18-month-old study, costs the taxpayer $1 million. It's 130 pages of expert analysis, raises the question what's changed in the last 18 months that makes this outdated. The next thing we heard was the average toll is going to be more like $2, not $9. Now, $9 tolls are routinely reached in places like San Diego and Orange County and Houston and Miami and a number of other places where there are private toll lanes in operation. So that is not unheard of. If you look at how much money this project has to generate, it has to generate somewhere between $20 and $30 million a year just to cover the debt service and operating costs. So that's a lot of $2 tolls. That's like 10 to 15 million $2 tolls. To put it another way, if the average toll was $2, every man, woman, and child in Lake Norman would have to take 100 toll trips a year. And so what you see clearly is that the $2 toll is not a realistic number. It has to be more than that. But now we're not hearing $2, we're hearing, we don't know what the toll rates are going to be, the market's going to set that. What we heard is that this is an aggressive model, one of many simulations. I want to be clear about what we requested and what was sent. We requested what's called a base case financial model. That means we requested the model that was used to justify the toll lane project. That's called the base case financial model. And this is what was sent. And as you know, it was very quickly walked back. So the model that was used to justify the project says $9 tolls. We made that public, and all of a sudden it became $2 tolls. What we've heard is the only numbers that matter are Sintra. Sintra, I don't know how familiar you are with the project. Sintra is the private company that was selected to do this. It's a Spanish company. And so you'll be sending your tolling dollars abroad. The only thing with the Sintra projections are they will not be made public until after the contract is signed. So this is the equivalent of you're buying a house and you don't know what your monthly mortgage payment's going to be. But that's what the case is. And finally, this is interesting. One of the arguments that we've heard against a general purpose lane is that, if we build that, it's just going to become quickly recongested. And we've heard numbers, in a couple of years, a few years, in 3 to 5 years. The NCDOT's own impact study, they have to do an impact study, and they have to submit it to the federal government. Their impact study looked at the first 6 months of a 50-year contract. So anybody who says these general purpose lanes are going to become recongested, again, in a few short years, they're making, well, the nicest thing I can say is they're making an unsubstantiated claim because they haven't done the analysis to do that. All right, so we saw the impact that we have on what will be out of your pocket, the impact that we have on congestion. A lot of questions come out about how do we get on and off the toll lanes. This is my map of I-77. Charlotte. We'll talk about what's in the contract. So you can get on at exit 36. You bypass 35, 33. Next place you can get on is Langtree. This is obviously we're heading south here in the morning. If you're in Davidson, bypass you, it bypasses Catawba. You can get on at Westmoreland. What's that? Well, Westmoreland and the next exit that you get on are going to be new interchanges under this, so there will be a new interchange in exit 27 under this plan at Westmoreland. If somebody said it doesn't exist, it will if the plan goes through. You will not be able to get on at 25 or 23. Next place you get on, and the first place you get off is what will be exit 20, which is Hambright. That's that last bridge that you get to, before I-77 widens. That's Hambright. It's interesting why on earth anybody would want to get on here. So I don't know, but that's what's presently in the contract. Then the next place you could get on or off is somewhere between exit 13 and exit 18. So basically, if you do get on here, or if you don't get off here, you get to travel probably another 5 to 7 miles. And remember, tolling is done by the mile. If you're heading home in the afternoon, you get on or off at Charlotte, you get on or off between exit 13 and exit 18. Same thing, you get on or off at exit 20. Now, I don't know how many people have the ill fortune of commuting up from Charlotte in the afternoon, but you really can't see how bad that traffic backs up, kind of at W.T. Harris. So you're gonna roll the dice here, and you get on, and you can drive, 65 miles an hour, and hope that it pays off, for 7 miles. when you get up to Hambright. If you are in Huntersville, bypasses 23, bypasses 25, and then the next place you could get off again would be Mooresville. So you have the choice. I'm sorry, not Mooresville, Westmoreland. Thank you for listening and keeping me honest. So if you're in Huntersville, you have a choice. You can get off at Hambright, and then I guess you could go up 21, up to 23. That's a lot of fun if you're kind of that. Or you could go up to exit 27, and then you kind of backtrack your way down to 25 or 23. The town that actually fares best out of this ingress-egress stream is right here in Cornelius, because Westmoreland is basically a mile down the road. And I also have to make one thing clear, that just because I get some people that get real particular about this. The contract actually says that the exits, the ingress and egress could be between 23 and exit 20. But what we maintain is, and nobody knows except the private company, the NCDOT, what exactly the scheme looks like. We just know the places. But if you think about it, if you're bombing down the toll lane, or no, let me take it back. If you're stuck in traffic, you're doing 15 miles an hour, and you want to get into the toll lane, and somebody's bombing down there at 65 miles an hour, that's an unsafe situation. And similarly, if you're coming up here, and say you want to get off, say somewhere around here, you got to slow down and make your way over to get onto Gilead Road. That basically just destroys the value proposition of the toll lanes in the first place. And so what we maintain is, although it has not been made public, is you're going to have discrete ingress and egress points, basically at each one of these two interchanges. So if you're in Cornelius, I'd say you're probably in the best shape, although you can't access 28. If you're in Davidson, there's really nothing in this for you, because you have the choice. You can either, in the morning, you can go up to Langtree, backtrack basically, and come down, or you can drive down to Cornelius and come in. And similarly, same thing in the morning, or in the afternoon, excuse me. You can get off on Westmoreland and head up 115, or you can go past that and then come back another way. I would say that probably any time savings that you would realize from the hot lane travel would be negated by having to do all that backtracking. So if you're in Davidson, I wouldn't be too excited about this. Bypasses 33 and 35, and then you can get off at exit 36 where the project ends. So if you look, the existing exits, 25, 28, and 20, the main, what I would call commercial exits for each of the towns are actually bypassed. And I wanted to talk to the business people in the room here for a minute. I suppose whether or not this is good for you depends on the nature of your business. For instance, if you're in a delivery business like florist or plumber or something like that, and you need to make deliveries, this might make sense, provided that it's serendipitous enough that you're at a place where you get on and off the tolling. If you're in like manufacturing or distribution and you drive trucks are not allowed on the toll lane, so this would not be a good thing for you. If you're a retail business that is relying on traffic coming off of the interstate to patronize your business, this is also not a good thing to you, because again, this whole thing is designed to get traffic from Lake Norman into Charlotte and past your business. Go ahead, Bill, take a picture. We good? Okay. I just want you to get a picture of my backside. Okay. Now, here's something that has not been talked about at all, and you're going to see this for the first time tonight. There's something in the contract, I even cited the section here, what's called patron confidential information. This is information that the private company can collect from you in exchange for accessing the tolling. So what can the foreign company, this Spanish company, what can they collect? Well, they can collect your name, address, telephone number, credit card. Okay, that's you need that basically to get an airline ticket, right? So that's somewhat understandable. Get your driver's license number. Again, I think it's reasonable that they would need to know that, or have a right to know that you are legally licensed to drive on their toll lane, so not unreasonable. Get your vehicle registration information. The registered owner of the vehicle will ultimately be responsible for paying the tolls, so again, that's a reasonable piece of information to get. You get your social security number. Ooh, I hear a murmur in the crowd there. All right. They get your law enforcement records. Some of you, that may really concern you. Financial profiles. And this is, this is verbatim what the words are in the contract. Also, you have medical data. I have no idea why you need medical data to drive down a highway. Now, I don't know, well, a little bit about contracts, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've done a lot of contracts. In contracts, if there's something that's not very clear, you have what's called a defined term. So if I say, Bill, you have to stay 10 feet away from me, we all know what 10 feet means. These terms here, law enforcement records, financial profiles, medical data, are not defined terms in the contract. So basically what that means is, it can mean whatever you want it to mean. Now, this information is collected by the developer, it's called, the foreign company. They can share it under certain circumstances with other entities. Who can they share this with? They can share this with the NCDOT upon request. Why would the NCDOT want all this information? Interesting. In Colorado, they passed a law that if you are delinquent on your toll payment, they can block your vehicle registration. So ponder that for a minute, because they have private lanes up there as well. If you don't pay your debt, and I'm not suggesting anybody be a deadbeat, but if you don't pay your debt to a private company, you can be basically denied access to the rest of the public network of transportation. Who else can we share this with? Authorized employers or contractors say that they have somebody who's working the back office, they can share this information with them. Authorized collection agencies, so you would be giving a collection agency your name, address, telephone number, credit card information, driver's license number, social security number, financial profiles, medical data would be collected by an authorized collection agency. North Carolina Public Safety Agency or public law enforcement. Here's where you might see a benefit from this, because if you think about, if they're trying to, say, catch a fugitive, they would know what car is actually using the toll lanes, and there might be a benefit there. However, there's a company called EasyPass, and they have some agreements with municipalities where they can give you an automated speeding ticket. If you think about it, you have like a tolling sensing station at one point, and then another point, and you know that distance, you know how long it takes to travel, you calculate the speed, and boom, you get an automated speeding ticket along with your toll bill. And finally, they can share this information with any governmental entity under applicable law. And trust me, I think that if a governmental entity requests this information, they're going to have an applicable law. Other than that, your data is confidential. So for those of you who did not want to give us your email addresses tonight, you might want to reconsider. It's interesting because, we don't know what the unintended consequences of this are going to be, right? Remember, this is a 50-year contract. And this just happened. I just got this, I kid you not, this afternoon in my email. It has an EasyPass logo and it says, "Dear customer, you have not paid for driving on a toll road. This invoice is sent repeatedly. Please service your debt at the shortest possible time. The invoice can be downloaded here." I just got this like a couple hours ago, and I haven't even shared this information. It was so topical, I had to have a presentation. All right, so in summary, tolling is expensive. We're looking at, the numbers that we have are $20 daily tolls. Again, the tollings rely on congestion for the business model to work, so insurance congestion instead of relieves it. Where we see commute times nearly double. Bypasses local businesses, collects a lot of personal data that can be shared widely. And we've come to the conclusion, after looking at this, that private toll lanes are not the answer. So, and I know it's getting warm in here, and I so appreciate your attention. I'm in a wool suit. So where are we at with this? There was what's called a commercial close, which basically, if you think of like buying a house, and you have a signed contract on a house, that's what happened here at the end of the month. And then both parties have to go through, and there's a number of things that they have to do, not the least of which is obtain financing. And that's scheduled to be somewhere in the fourth quarter of this year. So we basically have a window of opportunity to affect this and come up with something that actually serves the public. So our time here is very short. Well, how can this be stopped? The first thing is at the direction of the governor. The NCDOT serves at the direction of the governor. And if you're looking to do something, we have an opportunity to do this right now, because we have a number of cards. I think we got somebody here working the cards to hand these out. which we would ask you to sign, and we'll collect those, and we'll hopefully get more of those, and we'll make a trip to Raleigh, and we'll put these on the governor's desk. And you can read it, but it basically, very succinctly, talks about what I just mentioned. So if you'd like to do that, I think we have people that are handing these things out. I would ask that you only take one rather than a whole stack, because we have no way of collecting them in the future. The other is by a vote of the North Carolina General Assembly. There's actually a bill that was introduced, House Bill 1274, which says that any tolling has to be done by a referendum, by a vote of the citizens, which kind of makes sense. The issue with this is, quite frankly, that this has to be done by the time the short session in the General Assembly is over. So we would have to get them to pass this bill by early August. I think it's like August 3rd, August 10th, something like that. So you know, if we look at these two ways to stop this, you know, those are both pretty long shots. What's the other way? If you want to put this to a screeching halt, the best way to do this is with an injunction. And we have been in discussion with some retired members of the judiciary and some counsel, and they believe that there are a number of aspects about the contract, about the project in general, that would ultimately prevail in the court of law. If we were to bring an injunction to Superior Court, cost estimated that would be about $20,000. And there's a court group, about 15 of us or so, and we got together and said, you know, we could pool together, we could come up with $20,000. But we decided as a group, we're not going to do that. We'll give of our time, we'll continue to educate, we'll hold meetings, but if the citizens and the residents don't want to get behind this, then you know, we will continue to give of our time, but we don't feel like we have to subsidize all of this. So what we're asking for as well is to consider a donation to this. If you think about it, think of it like as an investment, you know, 1 day's worth of toll to possibly avoid 50 years, we think that's a pretty good payback. I had a guy earlier this week, he was so upset, he wrote me a $500 check. Not me, but WidenI77.org. To jumpstart this process. There was a lady here at the NCDOT meeting earlier this month. She said, I'll write you a $1,000 check. And she was ready to write. I said, sorry, we don't have our bank account set up yet. So I wasn't able to take the check. Unfortunately, I don't see her here tonight. But we would ask that you would consider and also to make this more known. So what can you do? If you look in the back, there are 4 tables, and each of them have kind of a different focus. One is reaching out to the legislature, one is reaching out to local business, community outreach, and then donations. We're actually set up to take cash, check, or credit cards tonight. But what we'd ask is, and we're keeping this, you know, this is less than an hour now, we'll have some time for Q&A, but we're trying to keep this part of the meeting, the structured part of the meeting, a bit short to give you some time to go back and talk to the people and sign up for some of these things. They'll be able to tell you kind of specific tasks that you'll be able to do and ways that you can get involved and what a time commitment would be. We ask that you provide us, if you're interested in doing these, your contact information, and we will be following up with you next week. So with that ends the formal part of the presentation. I appreciate your attention. We'll take some question and answers, and then we'll get you some time to get back there. And please, you know, we're a grassroots organization. It may take a little while to get to a table. Please stick around until you've had a chance to talk to somebody at those back tables, and please find a way to get involved. You know, and I'll close with this. My son turns 16 this year, and he's going to get his driver's license. So don't say you haven't been warned. He will be 70 years old by the time this contract expires. Is that the legacy that we want to leave here? I see a number of you here. Doesn't look like you're going to be around when the contract. Is that the legacy that we want to leave? I would leave that question with you.